Representative Guillen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I carried the mobile generator bill last session, and we ended up adding the language into the sunset bill at the end of the session. And it's of course very disappointing that the spirit of the bill, the intent of the bill, wasn't enough to save those 30 people. There's been a lot of talk about how y'all used the bulk of the money, I think it was $800 million, towards large mobile generators in preparation for a big grid event instead of having used it for smaller, mid-sized ones that may have helped in this particular situation. And I think I've also heard that other companies spent a lot less and did invest in these small, mid-size mobile generators. My question is, were you all able to use theirs? Were those deployed and able to benefit your region, or were you not able to benefit from that? And was it enough?
Jason Wells, we were able to use all 18 of our small and medium-sized units, and we were able to borrow 12 additional small units from our utility peers for a total deployment of 30 small and medium-sized units in this restoration.
And as far as you know, those 12, is that as many as were available, or were there more available but you were just not able to use them?
Jason, I'll have to get back to you. I know we were coordinating with our utility peers to see if there were any available, and these units became available over different days. And so my belief is that we fully exhausted, but I can't confirm that. So I'll get back to your office with that.
And so those 30 that you were able to use, 18 of which y'all had in your portfolio, 12 of which you were brought in from somewhere else. In terms of the need in this event, how much did those 30 provide percentage-wise?
Jason Wells, it was clearly insignificant or insufficient. We have about 8,600 critical care customers that we try to maintain. We prioritize those critical facilities as part of the restoration process. They generally are the first to get power. If the circumstances of damage are so significant, we prioritize then utilizing that small mobile generator fleet on an interim basis. I don't have the percentage, but I do know some of those critical facilities went days without power or backup generation as well, or mobile generation.
I guess I'm curious, and I think it would be beneficial to have an accounting of how many you would have needed, and how many customers would have been able to have benefited from it versus how many would not have. Because I imagine there's a number of customers that even if you had those small and mid-sized generators available, would, you know, with the lines down right across the street or whatever it is, they would not have benefited. But having knowledge of that is important, and I'll follow up with you and perhaps TDEM about whether or not there was other small and mid-sized units available throughout the state that were not deployed in this situation, because obviously if there was a grid situation in some other region of the state, I would hope that you all would provide those for them and vice versa. Thank you.
Representative Dean.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I want to recognize my old former desk mate here in 2017, Judge Mark Keogh, and I'm still waiting for that list of contributors from Montgomery County I can drag that black bag around to. He always promised me, but he never delivered that. I don't understand. Hey, man. No ass, no get. Anyway, Mr. Wells, appreciate you being here. In East Texas, my district, CenterPoint does a really good job with the supply of natural gas and very, very good with their customers and whatnot. But I was a little intrigued listening to Representative Turner talk to you, and from all indications and everything I read, you're a very highly compensated CEO. And the statements you made were you weren't really sure what the customers expect. That was a comment that you made that you didn't really know what they wanted or expected. And you can go back and look at the transcript. Am I correct?
That's correct.
I've been a CEO and a business owner for 40 plus years, and I'll assure you I know my numbers, and I know what my customers want. So, sir, I think it's very important that you understand that those customers are writing that big check to you every year. A number of us sitting up here have been through hurricanes back in the late 50s on, and this was a Cat 1 storm, right?
Jason Wells, yes, sir.
And we had probably 7 to 10 days where this storm floated around, hit the Yucatan Peninsula, then got into the Gulf. And, I'm just wondering, how much time do y'all need really to be prepared? Do y'all work off of, hey, what is it, a tropical storm? Is it Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4 to determine what your preparedness is going to be? How you had 7 to 10 days, and this wasn't like Hurricane Audrey or any of those. What all without going into a long deal, but what kind of preparation did y'all do in that week to 10 days, not even knowing that it was going to actually hit close to you? It hit Richmond, which is where my children live. But anyway, what did y'all do during that time to prepare? I know you couldn't run out with a bunch of chainsaws and start cutting right-of-ways, right? What did y'all do?
Jason Wells, we tracked the storm for 9 days before it made landfall, coordinating our emergency preparedness on both the gas and electric side. For about the first 6 days, it looked like it was principally going to be an event that would impact our gas system for the customers we have the privilege to serve below Greater Houston area. Despite that fact and the uncertainty around where it was tracking, our electric operations team were working with 9 different mutual assistance companies to ensure that there were enough resources in the entire region. As we started to notice that the daily reports of the forecasted trajectory of the storm were pushing north, we started to call upon those resources on the Saturday before. As the storm continued to move forth on Sunday, we significantly increased yet again our call for resources. That's why we had on the ground 4,900 resources when it made landfall and over 10,500 working the system on Tuesday, the 9th.
Okay. So what just common sense would tell me that if y'all took that much of an impact from a Cat 1 storm, boy, you really got some sorry poles out there. And I read your opening statement regarding, pole replacement, whatnot. How do y'all determine? What's your protocol or your program on just normal pole replacement? Do you wait till they break or get a storm or whatever else happens before you actually go replace? Because that seems to be, not a huge expense for a pole, but so if you had a lot of poles breaking, and I understand the vegetation part of the deal, we're a non-ERCOT, but our supplier, SWEPCO, I think I see Ms. Rui sitting here today, does a great job year-round on vegetation. As the mayor, I used to get calls because people didn't like the way they cut the trees around their house, right? But, I mean, that's just normal, everyday things that, you know, in your business should be doing without being proactive rather than being reactive. So, you know, in this whole preparedness world we live in, why were we so far behind in that program with y'all? Both pole replacement and a good, solid, proactive vegetation program.
Jason Wells, on our pole replacement program, we have about 1.2 million electric poles on our distribution system. It was less than 0.5% that failed during the storm. We have a 10-year cycle on our pole replacement program where we conduct an 18-point inspection on the integrity of our poles. That includes digging to see if there's any decay below ground. We then bore to kind of test the integrity of the pole. We have experts then calculate the integrity of that pole and measure sort of the remaining strength. And if there is a question about the strength, if it's less than, if more than a third of the strength of the pole has been determined to be compromised, we immediately work to replace those poles. And so that's an ongoing process where we test a little over 100,000 poles a year.
So what is your annual pole replace? And you know, again, the metal steel poles aren't as much the problem typically as just the old wood poles. But what is your annual budget for pole replacement?
Jason Wells, may I consult my resource witness?
Sure.
Including the inspection and replacement, approximately $40 million.
Jason Wells, it's about 40 million,
And how many total poles do you have?
1.2 million.
1.2 million. And what do they cost a pole?
Material cost for a wood pole is $2,500. Labor is about $6,000, so approximately $8,000 per pole.
Jason Wells, about 8,000 per pole installed, 2,500 per pole is the material cost. The remainder is the labor for installation.
Is that metal or is that wood?
That would be wood.
$8,000? Where do you bid on that contract? $2,500? Okay. What do the metal poles cost?
Fiberglass poles are about 3 times the cost of wood. $7,500.
Fiberglass poles, the composite poles that we typically use are about 3 times the cost of the wood. So
So you're not using wood poles at all. You've gone from wood poles when you replaced to a fiberglass composite pole.
Not
Or
at
are you
all.
doing a metal pole?
Sorry, sir. Jason
Go ahead.
Wells. We use a number of different poles. We do use wood as we did in this restoration, but we generally, when we have the ability to plan a pole replacement, are moving towards a fiberglass or composite pole moving forward.
Okay. So of the 1.2 million poles, we'll just say a mixture of all. And even if we use $8,000 as the total installation cost, wonder what that total, what percent of those poles do you try to, you know, replace every year?
Jason Wells, we test about 10% of them.
10%. But how much of that do you actually replace? And you don't have to bring, that's okay, sir. Where I'm trying to go with this, sir, is that no pole, no electricity, right? And y'all got caught with your old britches down on this, with poles looking to be a big part of that. Why wouldn't y'all, and I don't know, maybe y'all acquired some different systems and whatnot that had older infrastructure like that. But it just seems like to me that it finally caught you that y'all had lots of infrastructure just in poles that had needed replacing that hadn't taken place, and now you're looking at really having to spend a bunch of money to go not only fix but replace just in that one area. And then the whole vegetation thing is another big item. And I don't know if there's anything we can do about the rights of ways that you have where there's trees that have been identified outside that need to be removed, but that's probably something we need to talk about in what legislation there is where we can go on the private property in order, once a tree or whatever meets certain criteria that needs to be removed, we talk about that. But sir, again, we're talking a Cat 1 storm, and we've seen a lot worse. And for CenterPoint to be caught, so unprepared with their infrastructure, aging obviously infrastructure, lack of infrastructure to handle a storm of this size. What would have happened if it had been a Cat 3 or a Cat 4? We'd be sitting here talking about a whole different scenario, probably a lot more lives than what we're talking about now. So I think y'all really need to look at, the customer first. You need to look at this whole rate structure. I've been before the PUC again testifying when we were fighting dereg in our community. But the ratepayers cannot continue to be held hostage on their rates because there's not been proactive, programs and processes in place by their providers to provide them with service when they need the service. So I think we really have a job to do in this legislature to determine more about how we protect the ratepayer rather than, I've been before Fitch and everybody else with the rating agencies. And what they want to know is that, hey, city, we're going to raise the tax rate in order to pay for this bond election. You're great when you tell them that. But the reality is our people, especially with what they live in today with the inflation and everything else going on, they cannot be the scapegoat. They cannot continue to be the pack mule, for bad judgment and, people at the corporate level of the providers not making good decisions, and now they're having to pay for it. That's absolutely absurd, and we can do better, and we need to do better. Thank you.
Chairman, we're still at the State Affairs. Chairman Metcalf, but we need a clarification, Mr. Wells. Is CenterPoint maintaining the poles, or do they use a third party?
Jason Wells, we use a third party for that test and treat program, the pole inspection program that I outlined,
Who is it?
Osmos.
Their name keeps coming up. They were the same group in the fire, correct?
Jason Wells, yes, sir.
All right. Chairman Metcalf?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need clarification. So I've heard mobile gen was not used in some instances it may have been, but then I've also heard lines and poles were the problems, therefore mobile gen couldn't get power to people's homes. Can you clarify this for me? I just am at a loss. What was the issue?
Jason Wells, we maintain a portfolio of mobile gen.
Correct.
So we have 15 about 30 megawatt units, so larger units that are geared to powering substations. Those were not used as part of this. We maintain five megawatt units, which are medium size. Mm-hmm. Those generally kind of power a small cluster of buildings. Those were fully utilized. And then we had 13 small generators, anywhere from 200 kilowatts to about a megawatt, that can power generally smaller commercial buildings. All 13 of those. So all 18 of our small and medium units were utilized. Our 15 large units were not. We also borrowed 12 small units from our peers. So we had 30 small and medium units being utilized. There are instances where we try to deploy mobile gen to critical facilities that are experiencing a lengthy restoration. In some cases, those facilities don't have the equipment to take power, may not have the appropriate transformer to safely energize that building. So there were some cases where we were unable to connect, but that is the portfolio. About 18 of our own units, small and medium, were fully utilized. The 15 large were not.
And the reason why the large ones were not?
Jason Wells, those large units are too big. They power thousands of homes, and the issue was there were challenges with the distribution lines, and so we didn't have a community of thousands of homes that didn't have any damage waiting on power. So they just were not not effective in this instance. They're more effective in load shed where the lines are fine, but the issue is a lack of generation.
Got it. Thank you for the clarification. My colleague to my right, Mr. Spiller, mentioned about the PUC regulates vegetation management, and then y'all submitted a plan, but it was lowered. Is that correct, or can you explain that a little further? Or you didn't utilize your full budget? What's going on there?
Jason Wells, we were granted in our 2019 rate case approximately $40 million a year for vegetation management, and we spent $56 million in 2023, so more than what we collected in rates to execute that tree trimming.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Representative Raymond, members, I'm going to start rotating in the non-members of the committee, but I wanted to see if, I know Chairman Thompson's going to have some questions. So after then Representative Raymond, I'll start, I think Representative Harless, you raised your hand, and we'll get you all up there since Representative Harless raised his. So you all know you're going to get in the green in the chair and then talk into that mic. And you'll have to push the button up there. So Sam, if you want to go ahead and get up there. Representative Raymond, and then I'll go to Representative Harlan.
Thanks, Chairman. I just want to clarify, members, because I want to make sure that I've listened to your testimony. And by the way, you don't have to say your name every time you answer a question. You only say it at the beginning when you start testifying, and then if your testimony is broken by another witness, and so I'm just so you don't have to say it every time. But this is what I've heard, and this is a very important hearing, and I don't diminish at all, or minimize rather, what has happened. But I want to make sure this is right because it's on the record. 0.5% of your polls went down. Is that right? 0.5%. Is that what you kept saying? Less than 0.5%.
Jason Wells, yes, sir.
I know you're used to it already.
No, you did it right.
You understand? Okay, so less than 0.5% of your polls went down. Of those, 60% vegetation issues, of course. 60% you couldn't do anything else by law, by regulation, by whatever. You didn't have the right. Now, Spiller's saying that's not true, so I want to clarify. What is, Is it 60, what is it?
60% of the vegetation fell outside of our right-of-way. It was my testimony, my understanding that we don't have the ability without property owner consent to address. I need to look into the information that Representative
Well,
Spiller.
yes, and I know, I haven't seen the document that Mr. Spiller read, but as I listened to him, and yes, you do need, and today it's CenterPoint, tomorrow it'll be somebody else. So everybody ought to look at this, because what you read, Mr. Spiller, the way I listened to you, you said you have the right to, clear whatever to operate. Does that mean, including if you see a tree way over there that were there to be a hurricane, that tree could end up on this line? My guess is you don't have that right. And if you don't, then we got to change the law. And so the problem we get into sometimes, members, what I've seen for 30 years now, is when we get to the floor, we're trying to get to perfection here. If we're at 99.5 perfection in this case, but that last or less than half, we're less than half away from perfection, or we wouldn't be having this hearing, right? So, again, I'm not trying to marginalize, make it, this is important, but we're talking about less than 0.5%. So if we want to get to perfection, then let's understand all perfection costs. It costs money, and at the end of the day, ratepayers will pay it, right? So you all need to get back with us, not just you, but I'm so glad that the chairman, has tasked all the utility companies out there within 2 weeks. I know he didn't mandate it, but I would say it ought to be a mandate. You get back with the chairman and get back with the whole legislature. But if we want to get to perfection, which is what we're talking about, you got to tell us how you get to perfection and what we got to do to change it. Because again, as I'm listening, I'm trying to pay attention. I'm grateful it wasn't in Laredo, Texas, and I'm very sorry that it happened anywhere, right? But if we're trying to get there, I want to be fair about this deal. If there's something that you could have done more had we given you the right to do it, then you got to tell us. And if you were negligent, or maybe you don't like that word, but if you could have done things better, then tell us about that. Hey, within our rights, we could have done A, B, and C, and we messed up. Tell us, right? But don't play to the crowd here. Tell us what the real deal is, right? And if you feel legally you were limited in this way or that way or whatever, then you got to tell us, and then let us get up here and fix it on the floor of the House and in the Senate. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So, members, the way we're going to do it is I'm going to be rotating the non-members of the committee in. Members, you'll have to go to where Representative Hurlitz is, and then make sure you push the microphone to green. But members on the committee, also raise your hands, because we'll incorporate everybody. Representative Hurlitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to say a special thank you to you for all your phone calls and seeing what you could do to help our district. Our district was hit really, really hard. If you look at your map that CenterPoint put out, we had probably the highest number of homes without power, and I think we had the second largest senior population in my district. And like I said, we went a long time without power. Also want to thank Nim Kidd. He was instrumental in helping our area recover. Guy is brilliant, and there he is, and we don't appreciate you enough for what you do. Thank you for what you did for my district. Yes, sir.
Talk more into the mic.
I'm not. Oh, these legs are pretty long. Okay, so I want to get in my district, I don't have a mayor, I don't have any city council members, so I'm it. And I know I wore your staff out on addresses and requests where outages were, taking pictures of power lines down in the street and all that good stuff. And I've got to say, they were very responsive and helpful. I wasn't happy with the response, necessarily the delayed response, and you and I conversed on the telephone, and I appreciate that. I'm outside the 610 loop, so maybe we were not a high target area to get back online quickly. I think your communications probably should have stated that earlier, so more of our constituents could have made arrangements to go out of town. We were driving around the area. We didn't see our first repair truck until Wednesday evening. And I can tell you that if you look at your deal, you're probably pretty accurate when I say that, because I was out there almost 18 hours a day, driving around, taking pictures, getting addresses. Thursday, we were still getting assessments being done in some parts of our community, which I thought was pretty weak considering the hurricane hit on Monday. When we had these out-of-state linemen come in, tell me how long they've got to go through training and how long that training is good for?
It's about a 3-hour onboarding. So they arrive at a staging site, an area that we set up that is dedicated to having materials, fuel, food, everything they need to conduct their job. We spend about 3 hours giving them an overview of the configuration of our electric grid, the standards associated with that electric grid, kind of an overview of the area that we're going to dispatch them to work on so they have familiarity with the community. And so it's about a 3-hour process initially. And then after that, every morning, it's less than 30 minutes to hand out the work packages that they execute on thereafter.
So I talked to someone at CenterPoint, and I almost thought it was you originally that told me they go through 48 hours worth of training before they're able to be cut loose and get out in the field. Was that you I talked to on that?
I don't remember ever saying 48 hours. The 48-hour reference that was often discussed was it generally takes us 2 days to complete a damage assessment. In this case, as you pointed out, it was about 2.5 days given the extensive damage from Hurricane Beryl. But the first step in our restoration process is to begin, we send damage assessors out to look at whether or not it's vegetation-related damage that we can quickly clear, or they target and identify the areas where there's structural issues, like the replacement of poles that had snapped. We then, have to provide those work packages with all materials necessary for the construction or rebuild. And so that first 48 hours is often referred to as our assessment period. That sounds passive. The crews are out there also clearing vegetation, and where there's really no structural change or structural impact, we are restoring power during that first 48 hours, which is why we were able to restore about 1 million customers in the first 48 hours after the storm.
So let me dispel another rumor that was going around. I think you and I talked about it. There was a big rumor going around that these linemen were waiting in parking lots or staging areas because they were negotiating contracts. Is that true or false?
False.
Okay, so the contracts were in place, they were ready to go to work, correct?
That is correct. 95% of the contracts were fully negotiated beforehand. The 5% that were negotiated, we accepted terms and we did not negotiate price. So 100% of the contracts that we operated under, there was no negotiation of price.
And from my understanding, y'all have 1,000 linemen on your CenterPoint staff, is that correct? Or
Roughly.
Houston Lighting and Power, whatever y'all want to call it, about 1,000. How many linemen did we have at the peak of restoration in Harris County?
In total, we had a little more than 15,000 frontline workers. About 2,600 of those were vegetation, so the balance were line workers.
And when did the majority of them, did they get here prior to the storm hitting, and were they staged someplace else waiting for the storm to pass and then start going to work? Or did they come in after y'all realized, hey, this is a lot worse than what we thought it was going to be?
We started calling for about just under 3,000 resources on Saturday, 3,500 on Sunday. We had 4,900 resources on the ground, staged in safe areas as the storm was passing through the system. We had 10,500 working the system on Tuesday after the storm passed through. And by the 10th, we had over 13,000 working the restoration.
Okay. I know we beat up vegetation. but I can tell you, my wife built our house 18 years ago, and I say my wife, I have the garage. But we built our house 18 years ago. Our lines run underground, but directly past my privacy fence in the back, the wires are above the ground. When I sit in my chair and I watch TV, I can see those wires. They have not, since I've been there. I'm telling you for a fact, they have not had any maintenance done on the vegetation. And I've been preaching about that. After the hurricane hit, I'm driving around all the time and I'm looking, and I'm seeing the vegetation in these power lines. And it's going to be really problematic. In my area, we were driving around on Thursday. There's modest homes where these are working people. They're working from paycheck to paycheck. And we stopped and they cleaned out everything in the refrigerator. It's probably the most heartbreaking thing I've seen in a long time. Families were sitting in their garage soaking their feet in tubs because they didn't have power. They didn't know when they were going to get it back. And they threw away everything. And it's a double whammy because they can't go to work because work doesn't have power, yet they had to throw away everything in the refrigerator. And I'm going to be honest with you, these people probably don't vote for me, right? I gave one person my card. They didn't know what a state rep was, but they're still my constituents, and I got to take care of them. And that was really emotional for me. We have to do a better job on the vegetation. Your own words, this was a vegetation problem. Yeah, I'll own part of the trees were outside the easement line. I'll agree with that. But a lot of them were not, and I can take anybody from CenterPoint who wants to my district, and I can drive them around, and we're almost in a neglected or forgotten zone up there where we don't get it. That has to be remedied, I can tell you. Because if it goes on again and these poor people lose everything in the refrigerator for a second or third time this year, it's going to be a bad deal. I know that we live on the Gulf Coast and we're prone to hurricanes and stuff and flooding. I get that. It's part of the risk, but this was a Category 1. And most of this was vegetation. So we need to work on that. And it cannot be forgotten. And the problem is we're in hurricane season right now, and it should have already been addressed a little bit further. My other issue was the tracker. I think you've heard stories in the Senate hearings. They're not made up. Sections were showing that they were generated, and I'm in a subdivision of about 750 homes, and I'm talking to a representative from CenterPoint, and they're saying it was energized 2 days ago. No, it's not. They don't have power. And so it led me to question, and I'm not trying to get mad, it's over with, but it led me to question when I was hearing numbers that were 85% restored or 90% restored. Where are you getting these numbers from when I'm looking at the tracker map and they're showing areas are generated or restored, energized, and yet I'm standing in the middle of these subdivisions and they're not? That was problematic to me. On a Sunday, I went to meet the governor, Lieutenant Governor, Chief Nim Kidd, at a meeting in town. From the time I left my house to the time I got there, I had 12 text messages from constituents saying their home showed energized, and it's not. And I brought that up to the chair of the PUC, Mr. Gleason over there, and we were told that was the first time it was actually brought to my attention that the tracker hadn't really worked accurately since May the 16th, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I've said this before during Winter Storm Uri to the PUC and ERCOT people. Communication is critical. It's key to everything. And in this scenario, the communication again was pathetic. We have to work on that. If we know power is going to be out for a long time, my mother, 9 days, 7 hours without power, 82 years old. I couldn't get her to leave because she was scared she was going to come home to a house that had been looted. But we have to work on communication. It is essential. We know we live in an area that's prone to disasters. We get that. But disasters can't be communication either. So, thank you.
Yes, sir, you have my commitment.
Go ahead and go to the mic. But before I have her, does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Kelton? Because I'm going to let him go if you don't. Yeah, okay, so, other than Representative, does anybody have any? So, Lacey, could you let John up to ask him a question, and we're gonna let him go after that, if that's okay. John, go right up there if you've got the question for the co-op.
So real quick. So I'm State Representative John Rosenthal from Northwest Houston, and the engineer in the group. Well, we have a civil engineer over there, but I'm the mechanical engineer, and I do operations and deep water development and stuff like that. So the question that I wanted to ask each of you in turn to contrast
Well, right
what's
now,
happening-
John just asked the co-op because we'll
Okay,
come
very
back
good.
to
So-
the center.
When you're operating as a true public utility owned by the community, is that right?
Kerry Kelton, yes, that's correct.
Very good. So, could you give us an idea of what percentage of your revenue is used for reliability and resiliency planning, upgrades, that sort of thing, the M&O part of this that's not actually profitable?
So for us, as an electric cooperative, we are focused really on the reliability of our system. The people that vote for our board of directors that hire me are the very people that we're trying to keep their lights on. And so, but we also try to balance that with affordability. So for us, when we look at our overall budget annually, our O&M side is about 12% of our overall revenues that we bring in. And that includes power cost and everything else. Power cost that we pay is about 65%. So of what's left, we spend a lot of money on our O&M budget. Right-of-way budget in particular is about $3 million a year. That's per mile of line. That's about $1,100 per mile of line.
Your ratepayers, could you give me a ballpark figure of what they're paying per kilowatt hour, like on their total bills?
So they're probably averaging today about 14 cents a kilowatt hour for the
very
residential.
And for your vegetation management, can you give me a ballpark figure of what that management cycle is like? So every 2 years, every 3 years, every 5 years, like CenterPoint?
So
does?
we look at our cycle. In the old days, it was a 4 to 5 year cycle. Today, we have some areas closer with pine trees that are larger. We're going to trim those every 3 years. The other parts of our system where there's more hardwoods, more northern part of our service territory, it may be 5 years, but somewhere in that range is 3 to 5 years we're there. For our right-of-way program, we cut from the ground up. We have a 20-foot wide right-of-way, which is 10 feet on each side of our utility pole, and we clear cut all the way up.
Very good. So when this event happened, what percentage of your residential ratepayers went down?
So 75% of our
Huge
meters.
number, huge percentage. And how long until they were fully restored?
About 4 days.
Okay, thank you very much.
Again, members, I want to excuse him if we don't have, does anybody else have a question for Mr. Kelton? Then you better hurry up and leave.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, thank you. All right, Representative Hull, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank you for adding this so quickly to your hearing. You were on top of it. And I want to echo what Vice Chair Hernandez was saying about how the community really came together, and with all of our city council members and county commissioners, everyone worked together. Chief Nemkid was amazing, and so your staff, and helping my constituents and getting food, ice, and water, and doing medical checks, and it was incredible. And to our first responders and linemen, really, really appreciate them. And all of us in Houston and Harris County who are here, we all know that our linemen had a lot of threats and assaults, and it was really terrible to see that, which is one of the reasons my office submitted a draft to increase the penalties for assaults against our linemen, and to create an offense for interfering with utility work, because we know when that was happening, it was making it longer to get power back for some of those areas. And then obviously it was horrible what happened to the linemen. One of the issues that we saw that I can just tell you my constituents were very frustrated about, and I know we've heard it a lot, and you already spoke on some of it, but the communication part of it. And, some of my constituents lost power right before the storm hit, and they still don't understand why, and the communication to them as to why they lost power. And then I know Representative Harless talked about it, but making sure that people can plan. People had no idea, is my power going to be back in a day, in a week, in 2 weeks? And CenterPoint refused to answer that. And there was a lot of people who could make plans and go out of town if they knew. Some people can't do that. They don't have a way to do that. They don't have the means to do that. But figuring out cooling centers and other things for those people to make a longer term plan. So people had known, oh, my power's going to be out 3 days, a week, or 2 weeks would have made a huge difference. Things like even just the day count, how you guys did the day count. The countless times I heard from constituents who were highly frustrated just from saying it was day 0 when for them it was day 1 or 2. Basic things like that when it's 1,000,000 degrees in their house and they're very frustrated, just simple things like that just add to the frustration level, especially for people who even lost power right before the storm. And I don't know what's being done to help communicate some of that. I know that on some of the calls it was discussed that unless people sign up for notifications that you guys don't have a way to let them know. Is there any, can you speak to that? Because some people don't even know that they need to sign up or how to sign up. So what's the resolution there?
Jason Wells. Communication was completely insufficient, and we're overhauling it. With respect to the question on customer contact information, we maintain a service relationship. So we know where every meter is at every address, but we don't maintain a commercial relationship with our customers. Somebody may sell their home, they may rent their home, they may change. Those relationships, those commercial relationships, are maintained by retail energy providers. So unless a customer opts in and gives us our information, which only 42% of our customers have done so, we have no direct method of communicating. So that's why we utilize social media, press releases, community forums, clearly insufficient in this case, and we're overhauling it. But it would be incredibly helpful to have 100% of our customers' contact information. Again, we would not use it unless it's an emergency, but we do need to be able to communicate directly to our customers in a time of emergency.
And what's the solution there?
I think it's a policy solution. I think the retail energy providers need to be able to be required to provide it for times of emergency.
Got it. And kind of on that same note, we had my office reached out to all the senior facilities in my district throughout the storm, and one of them shared that while they can register to be on the priority list, that's only good for a year, and that most of them don't know that they are supposed to renew that every year and sign back up, and a lot of them other facilities that we spoke to didn't know that they had to go on and do that themselves. And so what's the solution there? And is it a year? How does that work?
May I consult my resource witness?
Mm-hmm.
Jason Wells. Customers who are on oxygen or some medical device do need to sign up every year. Critical facilities like assisted living facilities, hospitals, water treatments, those are on the list perpetually. So we maintain a list of about 8,600 critical facilities that we prioritize across 8 tiers, and those are the customers or power lines we focus on first from a restoration standpoint. For those critical care customers, like the individuals, that notification more has to do with limitations on disconnects for non-payment, communications that are specific around outages. We are not in a position to maintain uninterruptible service to any individual residential customer, but that individual residential customer needs to contact us yearly so that we have the information to provide, again, information around extended outages or moratoriums on disconnect, things like that.
And are you guys doing any outreach on that? What are you doing so people know that that's what they have to do?
We have our information on our website, and we do, as part of our preparedness efforts, reach out to community leaders, but we are, as I said, it's insufficient. We are overhauling the entirety of our emergency preparedness and response communication plans, not only looking at the channels of communication, the quality of that materials, but who we partner with in communities to make sure that that gets out as broadly as possible.
One of the other issues is West Houston Airport reached out to me because they didn't have power for many days, and it was the Saturday, and they reached out and said, look, we still don't have power, and we are trying to accommodate Life Flight and law enforcement. And so I reached out to our contact with CenterPoint, and it's great, and they sent someone over within an hour, and it was fixed within 15 minutes because it was just a fuse. But how ridiculous that it was that long for an airport who is trying to accommodate Life Flight and law enforcement to not have power, and it was a 10-minute fix. So moving forward, what's the solution to prevent something like that, to where an airport who is trying to accommodate those things, to where that doesn't happen again?
I'm sorry to hear about that experience. It's unacceptable. We are overhauling our direct communication with those critical facilities so that they don't have to, so they have a direct channel to similar. That facility, I can't comment directly, but that facility should be on a priority list, and I can follow up with appropriation.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm seeing a lot of this in Houston and it's there's a lot of facilities and different things in our district that should have been a priority, and they were not. I mean, there's like health clinics and things like that, and they're clearly not a priority, and that definitely needs to be addressed moving forward. You had talked about infrastructure, and I don't want to go over all of that again, but you had mentioned the composite poles versus the wood poles. What is the estimated date that those will be replaced, and is it all of them? Is it some of them? And you said that some of the repairs that were made after the storm, you replaced wood poles with wood poles, and is there a plan to make those composite, or what's the plan there, and what's the estimated date?
So we've committed to replacing the 1,000 poles that have been targeted for replacement through the remainder of 2024 with composite poles. We are working with outside experts to reassess our standard across our entire system and to determine the percentage and pace at which we replace wooden poles. There's been a number of enhancements in wooden poles. A number of wooden poles are sufficient in a number of instances. And so it's not literally every pole being replaced by composite poles, but we are utilizing analytics to determine where the best possible path is. And we will supplement those 40-plus commitments with a standard that we will work to as soon as we finish that analysis on the composite pole replacement. With respect to the restoration, it takes longer generally to set a composite pole, and we knew with so many customers without power, we had to prioritize the speed and pace of that restoration, which is why we used wooden poles. Those are the latest, strongest poles, and so we don't have an immediate plan to go back and replace the poles that we addressed during the storm.
Okay, thank you very much.
Representative Young. Yeah, I'm going to go in order right here. So Representative Kitzman, you'll be next. We'll go John and then Dennis. Go right ahead, Mom.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for letting us, especially those of us from Harris County, crash your party today. Mr. Wells, thank you for being here. I will tell you, I have learned more about your business model in the last, I guess, 3 weeks or so than I thought I ever would. And it was really eye-opening. I want to start by saying I represent a district in West Houston, and ironically the Energy Corridor, and basically from west of the Galleria to Highway 6. And including a lot of senior living facilities, and perhaps one of the largest, if not the largest in the state, over there off of Highway 6, Eagles Trace. You know, we see what happened. We see the life lost and everything in between that and an inconvenience, right? And we see those that had some wherewithal to make other plans, and those who didn't, and we see that period of time. What I recognized firsthand is we also had a little bit of the Almighty smiling on us, because we had about 3 days, intermittent every other day, of some heavy rain in the middle of the day that cooled things off. If we had a typical mid-July scorcher, I mean, Lord knows what would have happened. It would have been a much, much worse. I wasn't in the legislature when Uri happened. But I know that to fix Uri, what happened in that winter storm, it's very hard to do in theory, in the abstract. It's easier to do after it manifests itself and you see what caused it, right? From what I can tell, a Uri event is very unlikely to happen in the foreseeable future because of steps taken in a number of different places to solve that. Because some of the problems with Uri were just some really simple ones, right? Some were very, very substantive, or some were just simple mistakes and misses because that event had manifested itself. So we have the benefit of this event manifesting itself and exposing what we need to do. I can't change yesterday. You can't change yesterday. We need to talk about it, explain it, and understand it. But if we don't fix tomorrow, that's on us. And so that's why I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, when you started this meeting by saying we need to find out how to fix this. And I'm looking at CenterPoint and saying, here's a company that has a market cap of between $18 and $19 billion, has a top line number of about $8.5 billion, operates in 5 states, but this is by far the largest investment and piece of your business model revenue that you have in your business. And we have between the derecho and Beryl a $1.6 billion cost. Relative to market cap, relative to revenue, that would devastate any other business. It would bankrupt most businesses. Because of the business model, that gets passed on to the ratepayer. And as I understood testimony before, it's 2% or a couple of cents for the next 15 years. That's not the best dollar spent. If we could have saved, for example, hypothetically, you have 2.5 million, 2.3 million without power. If we can do something on the vegetation and the hardening and the resiliency and doing some underground here and whatever it is that fits that puzzle that works best. If we spend those dollars on that and we take 2.3 and make it 800, to say 800,000 without power is manageable relative to 2.3, it is, right? And especially because hurricanes come in the summer, especially so. I'm rambling, but I'm setting up a question. This is my long wind-up. And for those who know me, it's been longer. It seems like the incentives are broken because human nature says, give me my business model, and I have to make my customer happy. It's always part of it, right? But I'm a monopoly. And so I have a duty to a shareholder and I have a duty to my customer. It's a very unique situation because your customer doesn't have a choice, right? So I think we need to look at this and make sure that we do what we can to help incentivize all transmission distribution companies in Texas to make sure that those incentives are right. Because A, it's better for your business to spend a third of your dollars to fix it, to reduce your outage by 2/3 or whatever that number is. Problem is going forward now, that's what we're trying to do. What I care about is the ratepayer and the taxpayer. The ratepayer is going to get hit with some of these, the Beryl and derecho cost, and now we're talking about another plan to harden and do more resilience, and the ratepayer will be hit with some of that as well, or most of it, if all of it. That's what's concerning to me, and I say that so the public hears it, so the folks on this committee hear it, so our friends at the PUC hear it, that this exposes what our incentives can lead to and what maybe they should be. So I say that kind of as a message, and then I say it's Houston. You know, we represent 26% of the state's GDP, 25% of the state's population, 24% of the state's jobs, 27.6% of all jobs created in Texas since 2022. Nearly 40% of all the state's exports, exports, and so many more. We can't fail. Your business model should be happy customers and let's get more meters. To get more meters, people need to move here. Businesses need to move here. I'll work with you as much as I can to help you achieve that goal. Because that's great for Texas and great for our community. I jokingly say the only thing making Dallas look good is Houston. We keep stepping on our skirt. We need to stop doing that. So with that said, I ask this. What does it look like economically going forward on a plan to harden and provide more resilience to your poles and lines in this Gulf Coast area? What does that look like? I mean, from a cost standpoint to the ratepayers.
Sorry.
That's not me. Go ahead.
So we proposed a plan to improve the resiliency, harden our system for about 2.2 to 2.7 billion. That was estimated to cost customers about $2.50 a month when it was all done. At the same time, the $2.50 that we're spending on mobile gen would have been rolling off the customer's bill at that point, and so it would have been again, absent these storms, a flat impact on the customer bill as these full measures were implemented. All that being said, we pulled down the system resiliency plan given what occurred with Hurricane Beryl. We are reevaluating the pace and the extent of those hardening measures. I do think that it means that there will be more investment to mitigate these risks, because as you pointed out, the value of mitigating these risks up front definitely exceed the value of restoring service after the fact.
Well, we'd love to partner with you on a lot of that stuff, especially how we can make this vegetation problem go away. And I don't know, I didn't study the cases as well as Representative Spiller did or some of these other folks. I didn't think you could go outside of your easement, but if you can't go outside of your easement and there is something that poses a risk, there has to be responsibility somewhere. It's either the property owner or the utility, and we need to make sure that we clear that up in what we do so that you all can go with your eyes wide open and fix the problems before they become a problem. So,
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And I do want to say this. I do want to thank, there are a number of folks in CenterPoint staff that have been hugely responsive during the storm when we had problems, quick to call back in that respect. There's a lot of criticism, but I don't want to say that. I do want to mention one thing about the smart meters. The smart meters tell CenterPoint which houses are being powered and which ones are not. Internally, you had that information. Externally, on the tracker, you didn't because of some, and it was explained to me and it made perfect sense when it was. I slept since then. But I am told, and it seemed pretty credible, that that fix is not very hard. And it can be done pretty quickly to where with these smart meters, your outage tracker is going to be a lot more reliable, right?
Yes, sir, starting Thursday.
Okay. Well, that's quick. And then number two, do you need help from us for the retailers to provide you this information? Because the public may not realize they don't get a bill from CenterPoint or Houston Lighting and Power or whatever. They get a bill from the retailer. So is that something you need help from us to where the retailer needs to provide that information to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Kitzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, for allowing me to visit with you today. Most of my questions have been answered today. We've had some good people to ask you those, but I do want to make a couple of comments. One is in easement management, while vegetation's a huge deal, but you can have that tree that is 20 feet off your easement that you otherwise aren't, I didn't believe, entitled to deal with. But, well, if those limbs grow over the edge and you try to go trim them, you're going to catch 9 kinds of trouble from the property owner about trimming that tree. That tree blows over, hits your line, knocks out your infrastructure, and the dead tree right next to it is still standing there. And so that it's hard to predict that kind of thing, driving down the easement. And knowing which ones you would need to take off and visit with the property owner about, because the obvious ones aren't always the problem. So I understand some of where you're coming from on that, and it's a constant battle for any utility or district that has to deal with easements. My district, though, is more rural. Certainly I have some parts of the fastest growing part of the state in the eastern part. But I do have the ability to see a large portion of my district that's covered by co-ops versus parts of my district that are covered by CenterPoint. And I know my co-op that I'm a customer of or a member of, as soon as the wind was below 35 miles an hour, those guys were out working. And so the tragedy and the discomfort caused by a power outage, to me, is no different in a rural area than it is in the urban area. Certainly many, many more people are affected exponentially, but if you're depending on electricity for your health care or whatever else, it's just as big an issue to that person out there. So I guess part of my question, because I haven't heard it, is in the overall outage map, when you saw who's out, you know the lay of the land, so to speak, what was your strategy in the rural areas versus, say, the more urban areas? Did it make a difference? Was it handled differently? I will say that when I was driving around through those areas, I saw the crews out that would have been working for CenterPoint, and they were working. I just wanted to hear what rural versus urban. How did y'all view that? How does that affect your strategy? I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer. I'm just curious how that worked.
It doesn't directly impact our strategy. So our electric system is sort of broken down to what we call circuits. It's how we sort of manage the system itself. We have a little over 1,800 circuits. And our prioritization for restoration begins first with those circuits that have critical facilities, hospitals, water treatment, senior assisted living facilities. That we attack those first because those provide the greatest possible benefit to the full community. We then begin to prioritize the remaining circuits on customer counts. And we try to bring those circuits on. And, unfortunately, what everyone heard around this event is there's concepts called nested outages. So as we bring a circuit on, there may be a localized issue kind of near a home, a transformer, a fuse, that also needs additional work. Our restoration prioritizes getting all the circuits on and then coming back and addressing those more localized outages so that we can bring the largest possible restoration benefit as fast as possible. So it's less of a rural versus urban, but the other path as we execute that work, we start at a substation and we work out. And so unfortunately, indirectly, if a customer's in a more rural area at the end of a circuit, they're getting they're waiting the longest as we clear that circuit as part of that restoration strategy that I outlined.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first, I actually want to thank you personally, Chairman Hunter, for your calls and text messages. And then when I first heard about this hearing and I asked if I could sit in, the chairman instantly responded that I could. And so I truly appreciate the opportunity to be here, represent my district. So I want to express my immense gratitude to the first responders, the electrical workers. When we were having this issue where crews were being threatened, I said, be mad at the suits, be grateful to the boots. So the boots on the ground, those are the people restoring our service. Sadly for you, sir, you're one of the suits. The area that I represent is right off of Highway 290 as you're coming into Houston. And so when the derecho came through, literally went past about a mile from my house. I mean, we're getting emergency management messages on our phones, stay away from the windows, really alarming stuff. And so we had a number of residents went without power for quite some time after that. And people were asking me, I'm the mechanical engineer, and they're asking me structural questions, which is unfortunate, about why transmission towers go down when the wind blows. But that's not what I want to ask you about. But I want to acknowledge the massive loss. So I appreciate that you sat here and the first thing you issued was an apology. We lost, I think there are 28 fatalities that are attributed directly to the storm. 15 of those were after the storm passed through due to temperature exposure. And I'll just go through some of the notes that I've made during your testimony, if I could ask you some of these questions. So we talked about investments in infrastructure. and you said that's a priority for you all. If you could contrast with what the gentleman for the locally owned utility invests in infrastructure, M&O, compared to their bottom line to what you do. So what percentage of your overall bottom line, and I'm not asking for discrete numbers, I want to know what percentage of your revenue gets reinvested in the maintenance and operations side.
I have our totals across the company, but can I ask my resource witness for the breakdown for Houston Electric? I don't want to misspeak.
You could. It's probably not very important that we get the exact number. Can I just ask you if there is a mandated amount of reinvestment that's required to you, to CenterPoint? So when we say you have a legislated monopoly, how many customers do you have?
We have about 2.8 million metered customers in Houston Electric.
In Houston Harris County, 2.8 million. Okay. So when my esteemed colleague up here talked about, and you spoke about 0.5% of the poles being damaged or whatever that number was, how many people were without power of the 2.8 million?
2.265.
That doesn't sound like 0.5%. What percentage of your customers in my area went without power for?
In total, there was roughly about 80% of our customers without power.
Got it. And how long in total to restore all the ones that could receive power?
We were 98% restored within 10 days.
10 days. Got it. But there's no mandate about how much you have to reinvest, or tree trimming cycles, vegetation management, whatever. None of that is mandated. It's up to your discretion. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you submit resiliency, reliability plans periodically. The legislation that passed in the last session has those plans now being submitted directly to the Public Utility Commission. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We're the first transmission and distribution utility to file a plan under that new law, but we withdrew it or abated the schedule after this storm.
And I was actually hopeful that that legislation would be helpful, but I guess I didn't realize that it was cutting out a review by the municipality, right? So it used to be stakeholders from the city of Houston got to review these plans and work with you all on how it was managed. Is that correct?
The cities are still parties to and intervene during the rate case, so they provide feedback on the testimony and the filing itself.
But it's only the Public Utility Commission that says yes or no. Is that right?
I believe it's only the Public Utility Commission in this case after.
Very good. So I want to be clear that I'm framing this in terms of the regulatory environment under which you operate.
Yep.
So for sure, we got a number of electrical providers that are operated for profit. Is your background in finance?
Yes, sir.
CEO of the company is a finance person. So in my role as an engineer, I've worked at companies that were led by what engineers affectionately term bean counters. And I've also been at companies that were led by operations people. And sometimes it occurs to, at least it seems like, having a finance person at the top of the chain indicates a prioritization of profit. So how much profit did CenterPoint make last year?
Just under $1 billion.
Not the $6.5 billion? Oh, that's the revenue.
That was revenue.
Okay, got it. And the year before?
It was a little more than $1 billion the year before.
All right, good. And the M&O budget for each of those years, where you're making about $1 billion in clear profit?
In total, it was a little more than $2 billion, but of that, we manage about 1.3 billion. The rest is allocated from other transmission operators across the state.
Okay, I'd like to understand a little of the communication that happened. We were working with somebody named Jeff Bonham who works directly with us, a number of us in the Houston area. I appreciated Jeff's daily communications. Some of the things that you have said in this hearing directly contradict what he told us when we were in those communications. So I just want to clarify that. So the part about any crew coming in needing 48 hours just to stage and train and all that stuff, you said that number is 3 hours.
That's correct.
So this was something that was said to us over and over in these calls that we had daily with CenterPoint as a reason why the invited crews, the what do you call them, your partnering organizations that sent folks in, would take 2, 3, 4 days to deploy. And it was very frustrating for the residents who kept being told that people were coming in, but it was taking days to stage them. Can you speak to those delays? If it only takes 3 hours to train them, and they can be here on the ground and in less than a day be out on site. Is that right?
That's right. And the fact is that we restored over 1 million customers within 48 hours. As we've talked about, we only have a little more than 1,000 line workers on our staff. The only way we could restore 1 million customers within 48 hours is if we were getting those mutual assistance crews out and working effectively immediately upon arrival.
Okay, so in my experience in project work, we do this 80-20 thing, where 80% where you can attack the biggest piece of the problem with the smallest part of effort, right?
Yes, sir.
It was my understanding that 1 million customers were the easiest ones to restore. Some cases just a breaker. It wasn't the massive infrastructure damage that we had in the rest of the city. So if it took 48 hours to do the first million, but it took another 8 or 9 days to do the second million, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And to me, that kind of points to really not being prepared in advance. And that was just the impression we all had. The storm moved through. It kind of caught us with our pants down. A lot of folks thought it would head off to the west of Houston, right? We were all a little surprised in the last couple of days as it moved in. And I feel like we didn't do as much advanced staging and planning, or you all didn't do as much advanced staging and planning because the expectation was that the storm was not going to be a direct hit coming over Houston. Would you say that's accurate?
No, we clearly need to do better, but this storm behaved differently. Generally speaking, when hurricanes come ashore, they start to weaken immediately. As this passed over 100 miles over land, we still saw strengthening of winds. We need to do better. We will do better. We are calibrating our model now to assume strengthened winds well over 100 miles inland. But this is different than what has historically occurred with hurricanes. As I said, we had started to secure over 6,000 resources before the storm even hit. And so we can clearly do better, but I wouldn't say it was from a lack of preparation.
Because it was 4 or 5 days before you were completely scaled up. Is that not accurate?
We had 10,500 workers on the Tuesday after the storm.
And just for everyone's edification, what day did the storm hit?
Monday.
Okay. So how long do you reside in Houston, is that correct?
I do.
How long?
4 years.
Okay, very good. So certainly you're aware of our attitude as Houstonians, and actually I don't live in the city limits, I'm in the unincorporated area. But when a storm like this coming in and it says it's going to be Category 1, the prevailing sentiment in our communities is we're not worried about the wind. We're not worried about the wind. We have hurricanes every year. we're worried about how long we're going to be without power. So I feel like it didn't used to be that way. I've been living in Houston for over 30 years. Are you aware that there are at least 2 well-documented analytical studies that point to the lack of infrastructure investment in our area, indicating that we will have increasingly frequent outages for weather and severe events?
I'm aware of such studies, yep.
Okay. So when we point to these statistics that you have done your best to refute here today, that CenterPoint spends less per capita on vegetation management or whatever than other companies, I'd say the evidence is borne out because people just believe our power grid is rickety. And even if the wind blows, our power where I live goes out. And the deregulation has not kept my rates low because they keep going up. So I'm just want to, again, frame this in terms of the regulatory environment that allows maximizing profits over reliability and resiliency. You talked about a risk trade-off between vegetation management and mobile generation. Have you talked about the risk trade-off between investing in vegetation management and infrastructure reliability over the loss of these families' lives?
Any loss of life is an absolute tragedy. I didn't specifically say a trade-off between. What I testified to is that we manage a portfolio of risks. We manage risks of what we saw in Winter Storm Uri, shortfalls of generation due to extreme weather. We manage risks related to wind and flood, and we manage risks, the threat of cyber. Increasingly, what we're seeing in the utility industry is wildfires, right? We manage a portfolio of risks. I don't dispute the fact that this requires investment. As I mentioned earlier, when I joined the company just under 4 years ago, we immediately embarked on a strategy to more than double our annual investment in our infrastructure. I can't speak to the decisions that happened before, but I could tell immediately that we needed to increase the level of investment and have been doing that. You did mention your rates continue to go up. Our T&D rate is roughly 5 cents. 10 years ago, it was roughly 5 cents. We've been making that investment, as I said, doubling over the last 3.5 years, with the benefit of the growing economy here in Houston that spreads those costs out, maintaining discipline around the work that we do. And so the rate increases are not a function of the T&D charge on the bill. Those are a function of higher energy costs.
So the gentleman before you said the average ratepayer was 14, 15 cents per kilowatt hour. How much is your average ratepayer pay?
We don't have a commercial relationship with a customer. In the deregulated market, retail energy providers pay us for the use, and we charge them 5 cents a kilowatt hour.
Is it not the same for the public utility?
It is not.
Okay.
They maintain that direct relationship and have responsibility for both.
Well, I can tell you that it's roughly the same in our market. I do want to be helpful, so I don't just want to demonize CenterPoint, because in past, CenterPoint Energy has been a trusted partner for us in the Houston area. Y'all literally provide electric and natural gas to my home, and I'm grateful about that. But also at the same time, it's become increasingly unreliable. And so in the context of what we can do from the legislature, I kind of agree with some of the stuff that we've been talking about here today. For instance, the communication plan. So when the retail electric providers, they have to have contact information for their customers, perhaps that should be feeding a database that you have access to. So when you put out text messages, you got everybody, or you put out emails, you've got all your customers. That'd be helpful to you.
Yes, sir.
Would it be helpful to you for us to clarify better access to vegetation management and even if these wires pass through areas that you don't specifically have right-of-way for, a notification and management system so that I don't know exactly how it will work, whether it's an eminent domain kind of thing or whether you can give notice to customers saying, we have seen vegetation that's going to present a hazard in the case of an emergency. You either have to trim it or let us trim it. But one way or another, it has to get done. Would that sort of regulatory environment be helpful to you?
Yes, sir.
I also think, just for the record, it might be helpful if we were mandating a certain amount of infrastructure investment. So whether we talk about a 5-year vegetation trimming cycle, and while I could sit here and say, I haven't seen the guys on my street, I also know I live in an area that's a county of 4.6 million. I'm not going to see the guys every time they're out trimming trees, but a coordinated plan that requires a little bit more investment in reliability, I think, is going to be prudent. So the pieces, to me, are both the reliability, so that means less customers go down when the major event happens, and then resiliency. That's our time to repair because Category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hurricane comes through, some people are going to lose power no matter how much money you spend or try to do it. But the key is minimizing that impact at the beginning and being able to recover from it quicker. And so I do look forward to getting input from your experts about what we can do to really shore up both aspects of that, because it's clear this was a massive failure. And this isn't something we didn't see coming. When the people of the city joke about, we're cool with a hurricane, we're just afraid of the power outage because I'm going to lose all my food, I literally had residents perish from heat exhaustion. And we had others that had difficulty keeping their medications refrigerated and all of that stuff. And so also maintaining databases of critical infrastructure or senior care facilities. So we'll have priority, but also critical kind of stuff. That you have some of that, but clearly not all of it. I think that's... I think those are my questions. I appreciate your patience, sir.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Chair.
Representative Paul. Do you have some? While he's going up, I need to get a clarification, Mr. Wells. So you had testified early on about $800 million in generators were purchased?
Yes, sir.
From whom?
Life Cycle Power.
Who?
It's a company called Life Cycle Power.
Can you just give us a simple who they are?
It's a oil field services company that has historically sold or leased mobile generators for kind of fracking purposes. In this case, we asked to use that equipment for purposes of supplying power to the grid, but they're generally a company that is focused on supporting oil field service activities.
And where are they located?
I can't remember where they're based.
Just get back to us. Give it to the clerk.
Will do.
Representative Paul.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you letting us sit in and participate this. I won't make any long statements or anything. I'll make everybody sit through all that stuff. But obviously, most all my questions got answered up here coming up last. But a couple of things I wanted to clarify or so. Obviously, like you said, when you're going through and fixing these things, if I can fix one little switch and turn on 1 million homes, I'm doing that first. And as you go through it. But you also said that all the problems, 60% of these problems were caused by vegetation that was outside of your area, and 40% was from vegetation inside. So that was 100%. Are you saying that every problem that you had, even these little things that you're able to fix quick and turn on a lot of homes, was all due to vegetation? Nothing else was wind, shaking wires otherwise, or was everything a vegetation problem?
It was almost entirely a vegetation problem. We did have 3,000 poles break. I don't have the number of outages associated with that, but the 3,000 poles is a fraction of the poles that we have on our system. So it was almost
Yeah,
exclusive.
and I think you had testified it was a 1% or something like that. You did give us that number. So I just wanted to clarify with what you were saying. Now, how much did y'all spend, and I guess you're probably still totaling those numbers, but your estimate of what it's going to cost for recovery that y'all had to spend, bringing in the crews, doing all the work, what kind of number is that again?
Roughly 1.2 billion.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. And then going back to this vegetation work, the Houston Chronicle was putting out numbers where y'all were stating percentages of your yearly budget that was going to vegetation, and they showed that, and the number I'm escaping me, but I remember something like 16%. And then they showed other companies, hey, they're spending 30 or 40% of money coming in that was going to vegetation work. Implying that y'all weren't spending as much as others. And everybody's going to have a different part. If you're out in the Panhandle, obviously their vegetation is different than us in Houston. And your area being an urban area in East Texas, it's a lot of green and you have a lot of vegetation. What kind of dollar value are you putting in? And you already testified it's a 5-year program that you were going through to cycle through your system once. About how much money are you spending in vegetation a year?
About 55 million prior to our commitment to increase 2,000 miles this year.
Right. So, and just crude numbers, and then I'm sure it'd be more than that, but if you could do it all in a yearly cycle, would that be 50 times 5, $250 million?
Without a better estimate, yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So, and if you were able to have that vegetation work done, if you did the vegetation, would you be able to survive? And I get this is practical saying, would you be able to survive a force 1 hurricane with these kind of level of winds if this vegetation work was done every year?
We'd have a much less outages because this was vegetation related. The difference, though, is there are probably cheaper ways for the customer to get the same outcome. Part of this could be burying some of the lines where it might be hard to permanently take the vegetation out. Part of it could be increasing the height of the poles and making them stronger. But generally speaking, if we wanted to just take the approach, yes.
Well, see, what you just said is exactly the thing that we're going to be talking about. Everybody's kind of talking about, give us these ideas. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Because if we want to try to harden the system, so to speak, so that, and if that's a decision that's made by us and the people that's saying, hey, we want to be able to say that our system's hard enough that I can take a force 1 hurricane and not worry about it. And if these kind of ideas are what you're talking about, obviously we talked about this, is it better to go back in and rebury lines? What have we got to do it? Do we make like you said, bigger poles higher up with longer spans, through our neighborhoods to do this? Those kind of ideas is exactly what we need, and some kind of idea of cost for those to do it. So any help on that would be great, or your industry. And then also, one last thing, bearing in that same mode, have y'all already gone through and prepared some kind of, here I'm getting old, Chairman, and it just fell right out of my head, lessons learned kind of a criteria? Do you have a list like that, hey, these are things that we need to make sure and get done so we won't have this problem, so I'm not sitting here for 2 days in a chair as we are doing this. Do you have a list like that, and what might be on it?
Yes, sir. We immediately came up with 40 actions to implement right now from those lessons learned. Mm-hmm. Separately, we've engaged about 20 different experts. So former executives that had architected the plan on hardening the system in Florida, as an example, to emergency preparedness and response, to communications experts. They are also real-time giving us feedback that we will add to this plan. And then separately, we've launched today a full independent after-action assessment for a company to look end-to-end. That report will be available by the end of October. And so we will continue to incorporate lessons learned from these other experts. But we knew immediately things that we could improve upon, and that informed what we are taking action on today.
Great, great. And you like the communications, Joy said, and part of that's Thursday. This report that you get in October, is that something that you'll be able to release to the public?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, great. And one last thing, as far as this going through, and y'all discussed it, and on y'all's calls, I thought Jeff did a great job with us all the time, giving us info, but the identifying this, I'm escaping the right word, identifying the problem and then getting us crews assigned, took 2 days, and as you were saying that. But again, part of this stuff out on the street, was that a different system than what y'all used before? And what the allegation is coming is hey, this guy would have to go out and fix one thing and come back to the office, and y'all tell him what to do, and go out and fix that one thing and tell him what to do, where it was before the lineman could go out there and look at it and goes, oh, I see 5 things that I can just fix right here, and he's fixing them on his own. Is any of that true, or is that just kind of urban legend stuff?
It's not true, sir. There was a lot of misinformation in this, unfortunately, in this event, and I can understand given the frustration of the community. But the first thing that we do is we assign, again, those circuits, sort of the way we break down our electric circuit. We send a bunch of crews out, and we say, just tackle the circuit, right? And they will address everything that they can that doesn't require major construction.
Yes, that's at that circuit level, which maybe I can turn the 1 million homes on with a switch.
That's right. And then they come back and they say, well, we've got to replace a pole here, rebuild here. And that's when we start to issue specific tickets. That process is a process that we've been using and is consistent. Now, it needs to be better, and it will be better, but there was no change in the middle of this hurricane response. It was
so it wasn't like a new, hey, 5 years ago, CenterPoint's policy was to do X, and now we're doing Y because it's a new and improved Y. Or you think it's really the same process that all of us native Houstonians have gone through all of our lives?
And that we try to enhance each year, but it's effectively the same process.
Okay, and then the last thing here, and I'll get back to the committee, but this, as far as preparation, and you stated you had 11,000 guys in the field the next day and stuff, but was the fact that this hurricane, it showed it going into northern Mexico, and then it showed it going into Brownsville, and then it was going to hit Todd up in Corpus, and then it came back and ultimately hit us in Houston, and these things tend to go east as they go up, but did that prediction process hamper y'all in being prepared?
No, sir. We were coordinating those 9 days with all of our Texas Gulf Coast utilities, making sure that there were ample resources in the region. I know it sounds frustrating to say, well, why weren't they in the city of Houston? But it does not, it's not in the interest of those line workers to stage them in the eye of the storm. They can be impacted by the storm itself. Their equipment's not rated to high extreme winds. They could be flooded in. There are a whole host of reasons that companies, utilities, stage those crews right on the outside so that they can immediately descend as the storm moves through the system. Now, when we coordinate with other utilities, as it looked like it was coming south of Houston, our sister utility, and it made a request, a reservation for more. But the way that process works is immediately as it starts to turn north, our neighboring utilities release those crews, and they are in the region to be here, as I said, working the event day of and day after.
Yeah, instead of you getting ready to go to Corpus, Corpus was coming to you. All right, well, thank you, Chairman. And Chairman, thanks for y'all's part here.
Thank you. Representative Cunningham, come down, and while you're coming down, we have 2 questions from the members. Representative Raymond first and Representative Dean.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be quick. A lot of misinformation, like you mentioned, in the world of where we are today, and I wanted to clarify on the generators, $800 million, right, on the generators that you leased, right?
Yes, sir.
Somebody tweeted, and I wanted to, I don't know, with Joe Rogan or Amber Rose or somebody. Do you even know who those are?
I know one of the 2, yes.
So you leased them for $800. I forget, how many were they?
It was a total of 20 units.
20. And this is a clarification. Because you can't buy them by law? Is that right? We don't let you buy, we didn't let you buy them, or?
That's correct.
That's what I thought, that's what I remembered, but I knew you would know.
Yes, sir.
So you could not buy them, you had to lease them.
That's correct.
And how long is that, when did the lease go into effect? Last year, probably?
We leased those kind of late 21, early 22, so right around the end of the year, call it 2021. And the
Okay,
lease
couple of
runs
years now.
effectively through
And so-
2029.
So 20 of them for 800 million, and how long is the lease?
About a 7-year lease.
Huh?
About a 7-year lease.
And if you had bought them, it would have been for about half of that, you said?
Less than half, yes, sir.
Less than half. And where did you lease them? In Houston or Dallas, or where are they from? Or all over? Or?
I don't know where the company is based. All of the units are in Houston. It was at a time where there was a lot of demand as the Permian Basin was starting to increase activity, and so some of those units had to be shipped from across the country. And I think in one instance we got a unit from overseas, but all of those units are in Houston.
But from different companies?
No, it's all one company.
And what's the company?
Life Cycle Power.
Are they from Texas?
I believe they are, but I need to confirm their corporate headquarters.
Yeah, make sure they're from Texas, man. I mean, come on. Is that not on the law? No, I'm kidding. Okay, and then the PUC had to approve that.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Representative Dean.
Well, Raymond's getting the exact same text message and emails the rest of us are getting about this. But first of all, I see Jeff Bonham sitting back over there. And Jeff's done a good job in communicating with all of us. I just want to make sure that we recognize him. But the question started off earlier with Speaker Guerin asking this question. You know, leasing for $800 million, but you could have bought them directly for about $325, if I remember your response. What law would that? I mean, no wonder the credit rating situation. How does that business model work? Where you're having to spend $475,000 more million? Thank you, Raymond. Can you help us or tell us what law is that would force you to have to rent versus to buying those same units? Or is it, and let me say this, we're in the rental business, so I understand it. Or is it an internal company thing that y'all don't want to own the asset, you'd rather just rent it?
That was a state law. I can ask my resource witness for the.
Would you do that, if you don't mind? Because like I said, there's a message circling around right now. You got it too?
What's the name of the law?
Well, let's see what the law is. That's crazy.
Sir, it's House Bill 2483.
HB 24. And what session was that in? 21.
It's from 2021, but I don't have the section.
And that basically says that you can't rent or you can't buy generation or generators, but you can lease them?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify.
Representative Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick follow-ups. You had touched on earlier, Mr. Wells, on the customers who are on the critical care or life safety priority list. And I want to just ask on that. In an event like this, where there's mass power loss, is CenterPoint, and for that matter, any TDU, this isn't necessarily specific to CenterPoint, are y'all able to share that customer list with first responders? So as first responders are out in the community checking on people, that they can prioritize those households?
We can only share it with customer consent.
Okay. So if a customer is not consented to letting you share that information, you're prohibited by law or by PUC rule?
PUC rule.
PUC rule, okay. And you may not know, this off the top of your head. If you don't, you can let me know later. But is when a customer is enrolled in this program or on this list, do they have the ability to consent up front, or do they have to consent sort of during each event? Do you know how that process would work?
They can consent up front.
Okay. So if they have not consented, then you are prohibited by agency rule from sharing that with anyone, including law enforcement, EMS, et cetera.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then second follow-up, I think you touched on this in our previous dialogue, but when you were talking with Representative Rosenthal a few minutes ago, you said that, I want to make sure I understood right. You say the T&D rate is 5 cents today and was also 5 cents 10 years ago?
Yes, sir.
So it has not increased at all?
There will be periods of time where it has increased and it has decreased, and so over that time, no, there's no net increase.
Okay. So you're saying, and we're talking 5 cents per megawatt hour, is that right?
Per kilowatt hour, yes.
Per kilowatt hour,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you. So for 1,000 kilowatt a month user, that's a $50 TDU charge, is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's generally how we size the average, is about 1,000 kilowatt hours, and so roughly the average bill is $50 a month.
Okay. And so it's your testimony, that rate is the same in 2024 as it was in 2014?
Yes, sir. At times it has gone up, and times it's come back down, but between those 2 points, it's roughly the exact same.
Okay. Is it roughly the same or exactly the same? 'Cause it's two different things.
It's $50 a month.
$50 a month. And it was $50 a month 10 years ago.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Hernandez.
Thank you. Just wanted to follow up on your 40-point plan of action moving forward. We discussed that 60% of the vegetation issue was outside of the right-of-way. What is in your plan that you believe you'll be able to reach those landowners that you weren't able to do before?
Generally speaking, what we've seen, and this is common in the industry, is after an event, landowners are much more willing to address these issues. Again, these trees could fall on their home, and we saw instances of that. They could fall into our power lines. Generally, a community, when a devastating event occurs, they're much more willing. It's over time that it becomes difficult. The other thing that we're doing is, and this offers no relief to the customers of Hurricane Beryl, but that were impacted by Beryl. But we had begun to implement technology that shows tree health, how it's growing, and so we are bringing additional analysis to customers to supplement what had historically just been visual inspections of encroaching trees. And so we think the combination of the moment plus the analysis will hopefully allow us to target some of these trees that are outside of the right-of-way, in addition to obviously continuing to clear those that are in our right-of-way.
How will you reach them, though? Are you like door knocking, or how will they receive this information that you?
It's generally when
obtain?
we're out in the community, door knocking and walking up to the home.
So that's part of your plan to include that as well in your community engagement?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Representative Cunningham, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Hunter, Vice Chair Hernandez, and the State Affairs Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to actually be here. I want to start out with a thank you also, Mr. Wells, to CenterPoint, especially the area that I live in. I live up in the Humboldt, Huffman, Kingwood area, Lake Houston. And we had a hospital that was on generation we were in trouble. And the crews worked to reroute circuits because all the Kingwood circuits were out, and they rerouted it to cross the river. And so we were able to get those patients and everybody, so I want to say thank you. But I want to kind of talk about that. Now, I've only got a few questions because everything has been said, and I kind of get that, but I want to, and I think Vice Chair Hernandez said it, moving forward, and you guys have put a plan out. I believe you guys have already given something to the governor.
Yes, sir.
And this is a 30-day plan?
It has a series of actions, some immediate, some August 15th, some August 31st, and then the remainder by the end of the calendar year.
Okay. We're talking about criticality. So we know that the PUC has what we call the critical care, where customers go and sign up. CenterPoint, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys kind of manage a critical load, which would be airports, hospitals, cities, stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
What is that number of customers on your critical load? Do you know offhand?
8,600.
8,600. And if I combine that with the critical care, what is that number?
I'll have to get back to you.
Okay, and that's good. Service centers, or your strategic stations, how many service centers do you guys have?
I can't remember the split that we have between electric and gas because we have separate gas service centers, but
Well, let's just talk about electric, because that's what happened. Electricity was out.
I'm just thinking about them on a combined basis, so 13 electric service centers.
Okay, 13. And so 80% of your customers were out, and 13 service centers. And if I understood you right earlier, once the storm cleared through, everybody just went out and kind of cut and cleared and got stuff back on.
Yes,
Correct?
sir.
Okay. 1,800 circuits, I believe you said?
A little bit more than that, but yes, roughly 1,800 circuits.
Roughly 1,800. Moving forward, how will the plan affect, and correct me if I'm wrong again, you guys have what we call 10% worth circuits that you guys are supposed to give to the PUC. And how long does it take for those circuits to get off that 10% list?
Yes, sir. We maintain a list of circuits that have the bottom 10% in terms of reliability. And may I need to clarify when they come off that list.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Remediation actions are taken next year, but it doesn't necessarily mandate that it's going to come off to other situations. We attempt to remediate that next year.
It's basically an annual cycle. We identify the previous year, the 10% of the worst performing circuits. We then try to remediate it over the course of the year, evaluate that performance. Generally speaking, they come off then as it improves, but in the event that we still see underperformance, they stay on that list until they improve.
Okay, well, and where I'm going with this, Mr. Wells, is because there was an article, and I'm sure you guys have probably already read it, Houston Chronicle said that there was circuits that were there for like 6 years, which seems to be an awfully long time for a circuit to be on your 10% worst circuit. I guess my question to you, and you guys can get back with me later, in the Kingwood area, when I look at the circuits that feed that area between the Atascocita, Humble, and the Kingwood, how many of those circuits are on that 10%?
I know we have several circuits in there. I can confirm the exact number after.
Okay. And so moving forward with the plan, your requirement already with the PUC to report those 10% circuits, will that affect moving forward as we try to have a resiliency plan? Is that, and what I mean by that, is that going to put aside what you guys normally do to address it versus now what we're trying to do to make sure that we're going to, try to at least maintain some grid hardening, if you will?
No, sir. We continue to invest in reliability, and we continue to invest in resiliency. We will refile a resiliency plan, but in the interim, we're going to continue to make the investments to improve reliability of those circuits as well as resiliency.
Okay. And I guess one final question then. The comment was made that you need to resign. Given the plans and the things that we have moving forward, is that an option, or should we finish the job? In other words, is what I'm saying. So I'm not going to ask for your resignation, but we need to have a plan to bring somebody in new. Then they're going to want to sit back and make assessments and stuff, and we're in the dead heat of hurricane season. So will you resign?
I'm here to fix things. I've grown up in this industry over 25 years. One of the things that I've always admired about our industry is they run to the challenge. We saw over 13,000 folks from thousands of miles come to help our community in a time of need. I can't do that work. That's not me. But that's rubbed off on me. I run to the challenge. I'm here to fix this.
You know, there used to be a model that said, I think your current model now is CenterPoint, and some people said CenterPointless and CenterPoint always there. You was birthed from a company that said service first. Is that still kind of the model that we're working on, service first, always there?
We are in the process of revamping that and bringing customers back. I stepped into this role earlier this year. I can't speak to the focus of previous management teams, but I realized that we had not put our customers and community at the center of what we do. I immediately embarked on a process to establish our vision to be the most admired utility in the company. We clearly fell short of that. I take personal responsibility of that. But we won't achieve our vision of being most admired unless we are meeting the needs of our customers, exceeding their expectations of the communities we have the privilege to serve. And it was a purposeful step to align our workforce around the privilege that we have to serve the greater Houston area.
All right. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you,
Mr. Wells,
Representative.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Members, any other questions until we go to the next panel? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.